Welcome back to the Love Fashionably podcast. I am your host, Abby Smith, and I'm so excited that you are joining me again this week. I am very excited about this episode. It's a little different than some of the other ones, but I have some really exciting news to share with you all, and we're just going to kind of walk through this together. It's been something that I have been thinking about for the past several months and kind of the direction on where to take this podcast. Before you jump to any conclusions, don't worry, we're not going anywhere. But we are shifting gears or shifting seasons, if you will. So that word season has really been on my mind. I've been thinking about it. Kind of just in different things. We've talked a lot on the podcast over this past, in February, we celebrated a year. So throughout this time, we've talked a lot about seasons. We've talked about how the physical seasons a lot of the times will reflect some of your spiritual seasons that you go through, and you'll kind of see those shifts in your life around seasons as they're shifting in the physical, I guess. Is it physical, sciencey? I don't know, nature, that part, as it's kind of moving around. And so we've talked a little bit about the Israelites, and I think I mentioned it the last time we were talking about the Israelites, but if not, just a refresher. One of the first things that I ever heard the Lord told me is that when I was reading in Exodus, is that he will remind his people of where they've been before he will take them to where he wants them to go. And when you read throughout, especially in the Old Testament, it's like those Israelites really needed that reminder, like God was always with them, like he's like beating them over the head, like, do you not remember all of the ways that I've been faithful to you? Even last time when we were talking about Hebrews, chapter 12, and right before that we were talking about 11 stones to the hall of faith, where again God's reminding us of, okay, here's all these great people, they've done all these great things, I still have something great for you to do. It's like he's always trying to it doesn't get in there, like you are special, you are important, you have great things to do. He's taking you somewhere on this journey, and he is always there with you. So but kind of reflecting a little bit, and as we are getting ready to move forward, in February, like I mentioned, it marked the 1 year mark of the Love Fashionably podcast. So that it was launched last February. If you are new, maybe you just kind of randomly found us, somewhere on social media or where you get podcasts. But we have been around for a little bit, but it was something that was very scary for me in that type of situation. I'm not the one that likes to be out front with the microphone. That's not typical my personality, but it's something that I felt that I've really grown in the area. So I remember when the situation, when the podcast idea, words, Abby, I'm a speech therapist. If you don't know, I work in schools. This is the end of the school year. My brain is like mush trying to keep everything straight. So bear with me. But when the idea of a podcast was brought to me, I knew immediately I wanted yes, even though it terrified me. Just because, like I had mentioned back in February, I felt like I had become stagnant in my life, and I needed that flow again, that river to kind of flow out. And so we've talked about, like, over the past year, I've been doing like several different things to try to get back in the flow of things, if you will. But just kind of stepping out in faith, and we talked about how God will use anyone, and you don't have to feel ready to begin. That a lot of the times that's what stops us so many times in our life. When God gives us something to do, we sit back and we think, well, I have to have like the 20-step plan, and until I get this, I just know, like, I'm also, Love Fashionably came from, if you don't know, it came from, I'm an Instagram blogger, and that started first, and that's where the name came from, to love fashion, but also that love can be fashionable, loving yourself and loving others. And so that kind of birthed that whole thing. And like when you kind of start even that, don't try to research it. Like, how do you become a social media influencer? Because you're going to get like this 20-step plan. Well, you have to have this, and you're going to need to shell out all this money so that you'll get popular, so that you can do this and that. That's not, if you just take the first step, just do it, just reach out, just start and do it. And you have to kind of just be obedient in that moment. And you may not always feel ready, but you just have to step out and be ready. So I've kind of had this scripture on my mind that I've been thinking about. Been thinking about it probably for about a week. I shared it with a friend, but if you know, a lot of the times when you share something with someone, a lot of the times it's even more for yourself. And so you've probably heard this before. I am going to read. It's 15 verses, so bear with me. You've probably heard these a lot. They're typically broken up. If you walk through Hobby Lobby, you'll probably see one of these on a really cute picture. But in Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 15, it says, "For everything there is a season, a time for every activity under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to cry and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to turn away, a time to search and a time to quit searching, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time," that just kind of reminded me like hoarders, that's me. "A time to keep and a time to throw away." Sorry, random thoughts here. "A time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be quiet and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. What do people really get for all their hard work? I have seen the burden God placed on us all, yet God has made everything beautiful for its own time. He has planted eternity in the human heart. But even so, people cannot see the whole scope of God's work from beginning to end. So I concluded there is nothing better than to be happy and enjoy ourselves as long as we can, and people should eat and drink and enjoy the fruits of their labor, for these are gifts from God. And I know that whatever God does is final. Nothing can be added to it or taken from it. God's purpose is that people should fear Him. What is happening now has happened before, and what will happen in the future has happened before, because God makes the same things happen over and over again." There's a lot in there. One of those kind of that stuck out again at the end there, where it was talking about God's purpose is that people should fear Him. We've talked about the fear of the Lord on a previous podcast. If you are uncertain about what that was, it was like either the end of last year or the very beginning of this year, probably more the beginning of this year. But we talked about what is that? It's something that you've probably heard a lot, or maybe you've never heard it and you think of that and you're like, why would God put that in there? God's purpose is that His people should fear Him. Well, the fear of the Lord is not to be afraid of Him, but think of it more as to be afraid to be away from Him. It's your obedience immediately to Him. And so, something that I had jotted down one time was that God will allow seasons of your life when your faith is the weakest to be the most miraculous. And so for me, when I was starting, again, like I mentioned, I was starting this podcast out of something that was like weak. I wasn't really sure what I was wanting to do or the steps to take, but I just knew I needed to get out and do it. And so that's what I want to be the encouraging word for you, is for you to step out. That this is your reminder. This is your red flag warning, or white flag, whatever. This is a sign. If you were like, I was been looking for a sign, that's how many times that we want. We want like a sign. I need God to send down like a sign from heaven that then I will do it. Like, how many times do we say that we want that? Even if you don't say it, you might you're like holding out for it in your heart. Well, I'm here to tell you, this is your sign. This is your time to step out, because, it wasn't just for me to step out and, everybody else, okay, well, you did good for you. You did it. You stepped out into what God asked you to do. But, there's not a plan for me. I don't know what I'm going to do. But it says in here, and we know throughout the Bible, it talks about that God has a plan and a purpose for everyone. It's not just for a few people. I think so many times when we think ministry, or I'm going to do something for God, that we think that it's from a stage or that it's something else. but it's a calling for everyone, that it's something that God has for everyone. And it doesn't have to all look the same. It doesn't have to look from the stage. It doesn't have to look like one thing or another. It could be in the business world. It could be in the school. It can be walking to class. Maybe you're a college student. Your ministry is wherever God has you, wherever your feet are planted in that season. And so just a few other things on that. So again, I've been kind of feeling like season, like what is the season? And so for this podcast, I feel like this is kind of ending our season 1 here of Love Fashionably, if you will. So normally, you think a season has to end at 1 year. That's what I was thinking of, like when I started to kind of think through this whole process. Like I felt like God was like wanting to shift and do something a little different. And all I kept thinking was, okay, well, this isn't the right time. Like, okay, we've already had our 1 year mark. We probably need to wait till like the 2 year mark before we change anything or before we take a break or whatever we're going to do, and then on top of that, it's like, okay, summer, that's perfect time for me, because I'm about to be out of school. I'll have all this extra time. And so kind of just to lay it out, what I'm feeling like with the podcast is we are actually going to be taking a break for the summer. So for the next 2 months, we're going to have a little bit of a break. I'm excited about that because just as as you're going through this, it's been really good for me. I've really enjoyed the process of learning to be comfortable behind the mic and to, figure out what you're going to say. That's the biggest thing. Is like, okay, you have a podcast. You have to talk for like 20 minutes. Like, okay, to who? Well, to a camera. And you have to figure out what you're going to talk about for 20 minutes. So that's been a little tricky and hard for me, but it has also pushed me and it has made me grow. And I've been very appreciative for that. A lot of the times when you think podcast, you think, oh, it has to be a partner. Well, it may or may not be. It comes in seasons, if you will. And so I do feel like that this next season of our Love Fashionably podcast will look a little different. I'm excited that, I've been wanting to have some more guests on there, but just waiting for the time for God to open those doors and the opportunities, especially for girls. We know how much we love to be on the camera with our friends to take fun pictures, but we're going to edit them first before we put them on social media. But to be here and raw and real in front of a camera, that is something that can be very scary. But God is already opening doors. I made like a list of different future guests that I'm wanting. Already had 2 commit, so I'm very excited. So you don't want to go anywhere. You turn on your notifications so you don't miss anything come August, because there are going to be some very fun and exciting things. And moving forward, I don't know what all it will look like, but that's the exciting part, is just to walk this journey and just see what happens, right? So again, I just, a lot of the times I tell my speech students, they'll like start to shut down because I've been asking them to do something really hard, like move their tongue in a place that they haven't done, to say a particular speech sound, and they'll like start, I can see it. I'm a virtual therapist, so like I can see it on the camera. Their like whole body language starts to change. And I'm like, I know nobody likes to do hard things. Hard things are not fun. They're not exciting, but hard things are always worth it because they always make us better. And I feel like every time I say that to them, I'm also talking to myself, because nobody likes to do those hard things in life. For me, the podcast is a hard thing, because what is it doing? It's growing, it's changing, it's challenging me. And again, I want to encourage you to take that leap of faith for what you have. So I know a lot of the times we look at the calendar and we set so many resolutions and so many things that we want to do at the beginning of the year. We look at January, we're so excited for an opportunity because it's a new year, it's a new season, it's a new time. And then May rolls around and you're almost to June, and you start looking at it and you still haven't started anything. You're still thinking about, well, I should have done that. I should have done this. Like, it was all on my to-do list to get done for this year, but I've done nothing. And you kind of just think, well, like I did initially, I'll wait a little bit longer. This doesn't make sense. This timing doesn't make sense. It's like halfway through the year. Why would I start it? But whatever God is asking you, he says in Ecclesiastes 3:9-10, it says, "What do people really get for all their hard work? I have seen their burden God has placed on us all." Again, God has placed something on you. And it could be something simple as maybe, I feel like, living the Christian life doesn't just start and stop with reading the Bible, worshiping, and prayer. It's a daily walk. It's being kind to those around you. It's also treating your body kind. So maybe for you, it's a health journey. Maybe it's a fitness journey. Maybe you've been feeling this tug on your heart that I really need to get this in check, but you're just like put it off and push it off next year, later on. Well, summer is no better time. It's nice out now. If you're in the South, we're going to all you might sweat to death as you're doing it. Just be prepared. That humidity is going to get you, but if the Alabama football team can push through, so can you. Had to sneak it in there. Just maybe it's that. Maybe it is that maybe you're stagnant. Maybe you're like me. Maybe you once, were living this life out. Maybe you were, not just taking in the word of God and, taking in the worship and always doing it. But you just kind of feel stuck and you're like, well, I used to do that, so that should count for something. No, it's time to get up and move again. And so maybe that's the call for you. Maybe it's time for you to stop being stagnant in the place that you're at and to take those steps and leaps of faith. Maybe you feel like you need to start a podcast. Guess what? I know a podcast network. So comment below. Let us know. Reach out. We are always adding new podcasts here at BGTV Studios. Whether you are in the Birmingham, Alabama area, or you're listening to this and you're far away, well, guess what? That is what technology is, why it's so great, is that it reaches the farthest ends of the earth and it connects us all and makes us all one. It makes everyone not feel so alone. So maybe that, you never know. So never be afraid to reach out. And just kind of as on that note, before I forget, but this is we are connected to BGTV Studios. They are the host and platform of this podcast. Without them, we would not have this podcast for sure. I definitely wouldn't do it on my own. But they are always adding new podcasts. So be sure to find BGTV Studios on social media. You can find them on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Every time I want to say Twitter's not a thing, and we're not on X, so it's TikTok. And be sure to, there's also the website, which is going to be adding a lot of new fun features come the fall, so be sure to check that out as well. Just where you can get to know more of us podcasters a little bit better. But be sure to do all those things. You can also find me, Love Fashionably. So I'm not going anywhere. Like I mentioned, I'm going to be in the studio over the summer. I have some exciting guests that we're going to be having that will launch. I think it's going to end up being a fun little series come the fall. Don't exactly know what that looks like. So if you will, just be praying with me as we kind of figure that out, exactly what type of theme or what it looks like. I just feel like there's going to be a common theme amongst the guests, and I don't even know how it's all going to fall into place, but God does, so we'll see what he ends up doing. But you can follow me, Love Fashionably. The graphic is, not doing my best Vanna White if you're watching, but it's behind me. It's that with a little underscore on the very end. You can find me on all the social medias. I am on Twitter because that's where I get all of my sports information. So, you can find me on all of those. Like I said, I'm not going anywhere. I'm very excited, and I hope this encourages you. Again, step out, do what you've been feeling like you need to do, and check back with us come August. Again, I am very excited. I'm excited to have a break, but I'm also excited because it's not really going to be a break. There's just newness. There's a new thing that's coming. There's a new thing that's changing, and that is always a lot of fun. And the next time we chat will be 2 months. I got to get that football. And again, y'all, I was watching. It was spring training. There's an Alabama thing coming on. I think it's just stuck in the back of my mind. I saw it before the podcast. But anyway, thank you for always watching, listening. However, you can also find us on and go back to listen and to old podcasts during this break. You can find me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube's also a great place when you're at home. I don't advise it when you're driving, but there is the playlist, and you can go back and see. But you can also see everyone if you just find and search for BGTV Studios on all those platforms, and then you can find Love Fashionably that way. Thank you all. Have a wonderful summer, and I will see you guys again real soon.